Billionaire CEO lies still as a 5-minute test reveals shy maid's incredible, life-changing secret. The luxurious downtown hotel buzzed with laughter and chatter as affluent guests glided in, their designer shoes echoing against the polished marble floors. But Sarah, a 24-year-old maid, knew a different world. She moved purposefully, pushing her small cart, the weight of her family's struggles just as heavy as the bags she carried. Every dazzling chandelier that hung from the ceiling reminded her of a life just out of reach, a life where she could breathe without the suffocating financial weight on her shoulders. Her single mother worked 2 jobs as well, all to keep the household afloat. Sarah's 2 younger siblings looked up to her, despite the crushing burden of it all. With every room she cleaned, she felt a pressing urge for something more. A break. A chance to escape the cycle of relentless toil. But this day had a different energy swirling around it, one that intensified when Tom, a ruthless billionaire CEO, swept through the lobby. A storm of confidence radiated off him, but it felt empty. He surveyed his kingdom, blissfully unaware of the lives bustling around him, especially the shy maid who silently shaped her dreams beneath heavy responsibility. Then, in a heartbeat, the skyline turned black. A sudden electrical failure engulfed the hotel into darkness. Gasps echoed, chairs scraped, and the fire alarm blared like an angry bee. Panic erupted, and amid the chaos, Tom's towering presence was suddenly brought low, pinned beneath a massive chandelier that crashed like thunder. A luxurious life lost in this moment of calamity. Sarah's heart raced. Pure instinct took over. Years of practice had prepared her for this. Without hesitation, she rushed toward the vulnerable CEO amid the swirling chaos. "Stay calm," she shouted to the panicking guests, guiding them through the back exit as they stumbled, half in shock. Fear clung to the air, but she held on to her resolve tightly. Then, as if the room had narrowed into a tunnel, Tom's eyes caught hers, searching. Beneath a layer of fear was genuine intrigue, and he realized this maid held a strength he had never seen before. As Sarah knelt beside him, her voice steady in a voice that might have faltered, she eased him out from his panic, words surging from her heart like a stream breaking free. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the emergency subsided, an electric tension filled the air. Sarah could feel hope flickering like a candle in a storm, a chance to step out from the shadow of her life. But Tom, even as he began to recover from his panic, carried the weight of judgments that had long defined him. On both sides, invisible barriers began to rise. Sarah stood at a crossroads, the dream of a new life bordered by her deepest fears. The weight of her family's sacrifices clashed fiercely with her desire to break free. Meanwhile, Tom wrestled with the realization of his bias, questioning everything he'd believed about the people who kept his world running. A moment of quiet stretched between them, filled with deeper meaning. Would the truth of Sarah's strength spill open doors for her? Was Tom ready to confront what he had dismissed his entire life? As footsteps returned to the once chaotic lobby, Sarah felt the tremors of change ripple through her. This could be her moment, the spark that ignited a different future. But would she dare to seize it? And could Tom look beyond the veneer of status to see the extraordinary in the ordinary? The answers hung in the balance, leaving hearts thumping in anticipation. The swirling whispers of the crowd began to fill the lobby again, stirring long-held beliefs and fears. Guests hurried past, eyes wide and fraught with narratives of life and death, of money and despair. While they rushed to escape, one lone figure knelt before the fallen aristocrat, and the world around them faded. Tom's breathless gaze lingered on Sarah. Uncertainty danced in his eyes, but it was tinged with a flicker of admiration he hadn't expected. Who are you?" The vulnerability in his voice surprised even him. This was a moment that stripped away the veneer of his wealth and power, revealing a man searching for something deeper. Sarah shook her head, as if to shake off her own disbelief. "Just a maid," she replied, her voice steady but soft, framed by a fragile confidence. "But I want to help you." The words hung between them like an unwritten promise. Her heart beat fiercely now, every thump echoing the enormity of this encounter. She was just a maid, yet in this instant, she was something far more. She was hope, strength, and perhaps the catalyst for change in Tom's hollow existence. As she began to clear the debris, Tom dared to confront his own masks. "I've hurt people like you. I've always seen you as just part of the background." He swallowed hard, revealing a glimpse of regret. For the first time, he was confronting the truth of his past judgments. "That doesn't define you. Or me," Sarah shot back, surprising herself with the intensity of her response. For years, she had accepted the roles life had handed her. But here, with Tom pinned beneath expectations and a fallen chandelier, she felt a shift. Perhaps it was time to speak the things she never dared say. In that moment, the bustling lobby faded further away. The light of chandeliers dimmed, blocked by the enormity of their conversation. "You see us as invisible, but we carry burdens too," Sarah continued, her blue eyes locking onto his dark gaze with a passion that was palpable. "Maybe you could learn from us, just as much as we learn from you." Questions flooded Tom's mind. Was it a plea? A challenge? But before he could respond, the emergency crew broke into the lobby, clearing the area and lifting the chandelier with immense effort. The energy shifted the moment again, but not before Sarah felt the tiny seed of courage blooming inside her. She stood to the side, not just a maid, but a voice for those who felt unheard, even if it was a voice that still quivered with uncertainty. Once Tom was hoisted to safety, the crowd began to disperse, and in the bustle, Sarah caught a glimpse of him standing, brushing off the dust of his own fragile facade. He looked conflicted, uncertain of what came next. She felt a pang in her chest, wrestling with her own fate. "Wait!" she called out, her voice breaking through the haze of his thoughts. He turned back, his brow furrowed. "I mean, it's not just about this moment. I know you have the power to change things. Perhaps you could help me too. Help us all." Tom hesitated as she watched his expression shift from confusion to contemplation. What could he offer a maid? Would he dare to cross the boundaries that had always separated them? And in that charged silence, something sparked between them, an understanding, a possibility. As their eyes locked once more, something unmistakable simmered in the air. Would he dare to pursue this connection beyond the chaos? And would Sarah's leap of faith be the beginning of something that altered both their lives forever? The questions loomed, heavy with potential. For both, choices lay ahead, waiting to be made. Would they step forward together, or would life pull them back into their separate orbits once more? The moment stretched like a taut wire, vibrating with unspoken words. Tom's gaze flicked from Sarah to the crowd spilling out of the lobby, their anxious chatter a stark reminder of everything he typically engaged with, the world of shallow privilege and fleeting status. But here, faced with the earnestness shining in Sarah's eyes, he felt exposed, as if he had been stripped of all his defenses. He started, hesitating. The weight of his past hung heavy on his shoulders, a cloak woven from threads of arrogance and indifference. What could he say that would make a difference? He had lived most of his life cocooned in comfort, detached from the struggles of people like Sarah. "Tom!" A sharp voice cut through the air. It was Mark, his business partner and closest confidant. "We need to talk." Sarah shifted slightly, anxiety creeping back into her demeanor as she sensed the impending chaos of the crowd returning. The urgency in Mark's tone was like a bucket of cold water, dousing their moment. Tom turned, torn. Part of him longed to stay and delve deeper into this unexpected connection. But another part, the conditioned part, felt the pull of his obligation, the need to uphold his role in the company. He glanced back at Sarah, searching for the right words. "This we can talk later?" She nodded, though her heart sank. The moment had felt electric, and now it seemed to be fizzling out. Still, there was a flicker of hope ignited in her. Maybe this wasn't the end but just a pause. As Tom walked away, a familiar ache settled in her chest. She was left standing amid a sea of shifting bodies, yet it felt as if she was alone in a still world, a lone figure against the backdrop of the bustling crowd. She had spoken her truth, laid herself bare, and for a second, she had touched something real. A tune from a nearby street performer broke through her thoughts, a light melody that felt oddly uplifting. You can't change the past, but you can start something new. The words resonated within her as she stepped outside into the cool evening air. The world was still spinning, and though she had tried to plant the seeds of change in Tom, it ultimately rested in his hands. Meanwhile, Tom stood on the other side of the lobby doors, grappling with the remnants of their encounter. Around him, life dashed on, yet he felt frozen in time. What had just happened? And why was the echo of her words still ringing in his ears? Tom, snap out of it. Mark clapped him on the shoulder, shaking him from his reverie. We have a board meeting in 10 minutes. Right. He managed a nod, but his mind was still elsewhere, running through possibilities, scenarios that felt foreign yet enticing. Who was this maid who had shown him a glimpse of vulnerability? As they moved to the conference room, Tom forced himself to focus on the business at hand, but his thoughts drifted back to Sarah. She was different, that much was clear. He found himself questioning everything: his choices, his motivations, and what he was willing to sacrifice to create a lasting change, and then it hit him. What if he could change not just for himself but for others like her? Thoughts racing, he felt an idea forming, a possibility sparking to life. As the meeting began, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing at a crossroads. Would he continue to live in the echo chamber of wealth and privilege, or dare to explore the roads less traveled? In the bustle of the meeting, his hand involuntarily reached for his phone. Could he find Sarah again? But would she even want to see him after he had withdrawn? The clock ticked, each second pushing him closer to a decision. If he dared to take that step, what would it mean for both of them? Caught between the fear of the known and the allure of change, Tom's heart raced with possibility and the promise of what could lie ahead. Would he muster the courage to reach out and extend the olive branch, or would he let doubt send him spiraling back into the safe embrace of his old life? As these thoughts swirled, a single question settled in his mind. Was he ready to disrupt the status quo, to embrace his destiny? The conference room buzzed with a cacophony of voices, the dim lights casting long shadows over the glossy table. Mark droned on about quarterly projections while Tom sat staring at his notes. The figures blurred into a haze as the echo of Sarah's sincerity played in the back of his mind. What was he doing here? These arguments felt hollow compared to the weight of her words. Suddenly, he was jolted back to the moment as someone slid a pile of documents in front of him. Tom? You with us? Mark raised an eyebrow. The room fell silent, eyes on Tom. Yeah, sorry. Just lost in thought. Your thoughts better be on this meeting, Mark warned, a hint of exasperation creeping into his voice. We need you sharp today. He nodded, but it felt like the room was closing in. Tom's thoughts raced, trapped in a paradox of wealth and finding purpose. He could hear Sarah's voice whispering, "You can start something new." After what felt like an eternity, the meeting wrapped up. Mark slapped Tom on the back. You okay? You're not acting like yourself today. Yeah, just a lot on my mind, Tom replied, forcing a smile. But his mind was consumed with one thought: he had to see Sarah again. He grabbed his phone before Mark could ask him another question. Where are you going? Mark called after him. I need some air. Tom's voice was urgent as he left the room, not bothering to look back. The elevator doors pinged open, but he paused, hesitating in the hallway. The world outside felt so distant. His heart pounded as he scrolled through his contacts, finally landing on Sarah's number. the moment one of his assistants walked by, he shoved his phone back into his pocket. What was he thinking? Did he have any right to intrude back into her life? Doubt clawed at him. So much was easier when he was detached, when he could drown in his corporate bubble. Taking a deep breath, he exited the building and stepped into the cool air. It was a sharp contrast to the suffocating atmosphere inside. He made his way down the street, the sounds of laughter and chatter floating around him, yet he felt eerily alone. Where would he even find her? Tom had only seen her at that event. And what if she didn't want to see him? The weight of uncertainty threatened to crush him, but beneath it was a flicker of determination. If he had learned anything in that brief encounter, it was that change was possible, even exhilarating. His phone buzzed again, pulling him back from his thoughts. It was a text from Mark. We have to finalize the client acquisition before the deadline. Don't forget. He stood at the curb, watching the cabs whoosh past, their headlights illuminating the twilight. What was truly important? Client acquisitions or real connections? He turned the phone over in his hand, considering the call once more before mapping out his options. With a swift gust of wind, clarity hit Tom like a jolt. He had to take a leap. This wasn't just about business, it was about being the man he wanted to be. So he turned and walked towards the cafe where he hoped Sarah might still be working, heart pounding with each step. His mind raced with what he'd say. Would he apologize for distancing himself? Would he open up about why he had felt drawn to her? Courage surged inside him. The decision to disrupt the comfortable narrative of his life felt liberating, but as he rounded the corner, a figure caught his eye. It was Sarah, leaning against a lamppost, wrapped in thought. His breath caught in his throat. What would he say now? As he approached her, the moment swelled with possibilities. Could he really do this? And then he wondered, would she even welcome him with open arms, or would she shut him out again? The air hummed dangerously with tension as he closed the distance, eyes locked on hers, ready to confront the truth of both their paths. Was this the moment that could change everything for them both? Tom's heart raced as he drew closer, the world around him fading into the background. Sarah looked up just as he was about to speak, shock rippling across her face for a brief moment. Her bright eyes, normally filled with warmth and cheer, now brimmed with a conflict that sent tingles of uncertainty down his spine. Tom, she finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a hint of surprise, maybe apprehension, in her tone. Hi, Sarah, he replied, his own voice shaky as if he were stepping onto a stage, unprepared. He wanted to reach out, to reassure her, but the words caught in his throat. For a moment, they stood there in silence. The bustling street around them faded into a muffled hum as he took in the sight of her hair framing her face in soft waves, her brow slightly wrinkled in confusion. Suddenly, all the doubts he pushed aside crashed into him like waves at high tide. Had he really come here to apologize? To open a door he'd closed tightly for too long? I couldn't stop thinking about what you said the other night, he finally confessed, his voice steadier now. About starting something new. A flicker of surprise lit up her features. You remembered that? How could I forget? He had. The night they first spoke had been charged with a thrilling energy that left him craving more. Everything that followed his return to work felt insignificant compared to those precious moments they shared. She took a small step back, her body unconsciously sensing the shift. Tom, I didn't mean to pressure you. You have an important job, a whole life, right, my life. He shook his head, frustration mixing with vulnerability. But what is it, really? Just numbers on a page? I don't want to keep living like that. I want more. I want what I felt talking to you. Sarah looked down, her fingers nervously fiddling with the strap of her bag. I'm just a maid, Tom. My world is so different from yours. You have this entire empire. But we connected, didn't we? I feel like you understand me better than anyone else. I don't care about the empire. His voice softened with sincerity. What I care about is finding purpose. And you've opened my eyes to what's possible. Her gaze met his again, a storm of emotions swirling in her eyes. You're at the top of your game, Tom. Why would you want to throw all of that away? It's not about throwing it away, he insisted, stepping a little closer. It's about building something real. I need to face what I'm missing. And I feel like that's you. That seemed to resonate with her. He saw a flicker of hope ignite in her expression, but just as quickly, it was replaced by doubt. And what if you get bored, or what if it doesn't work out? What if you slip back into that corporate world and just forget? Tom took a deep breath, his mind racing again. I can't promise you everything will be perfect, but I can promise I'll try. What I do know is that I don't want to go back to pretending, to living for something that isn't me. The energy between them thickened. He could almost see the wheels turning in her mind, the uncertainty grappling with a desire for connection. Just when he thought she might move closer, the busyness of their surroundings encroached back into the moment. Sarah, will you give me a chance? Just to figure this out together? The gravity of his words hung between them, a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Her lips trembled slightly as she pondered his question. I need time to think, she finally said, making his heart sink a little. But there was consideration in her tone, a sign that she was weighing possibilities, not shutting him out completely. I can wait, he replied quickly, the urgency of vulnerability electrified by hope. Every second she hesitated felt like an eternity, but he knew he had pushed through a barrier already. It was a step. As she nodded slowly, he almost felt the shift in the air. It was a promise of something beautiful, blooming out of uncertainty. Just then, a sharp voice broke through the surrounding noise. Sarah! We've got to get these tables ready. It was a colleague from the cafe, bringing the moment crashing down. As she turned partially away, Tom could feel his heart drop once again. But before fully stepping back into her work life, she turned her head slightly. I'll think about it, Tom. Really, I will. He nodded, swallowing his disappointment with a flicker of hope igniting once more. But the reality of their worlds loomed large. With a final look, he stepped back, feeling like he had sent a paper boat out to sea, hoping it would not sink before reaching the shore. Would Sarah truly give him a chance, or would the tides of their lives prove too strong to navigate together? Tom walked away from the cafe, his heart heavy yet somehow lighter than it had been just minutes before. Each step felt like a new beginning, yet the weight of uncertainty tugged at him, a constant reminder of the barriers that still lay between him and what he hoped to build with Sarah. The noise of the street faded in and out, a blur of life contrasting the whirlwind spinning in his mind. The chance of something real with Sarah lingered like a sweet scent in the air. He had fought so long against the monotony of corporate life, but now there was a flicker of hope nestled deep within him. It was frightening, but in a way that felt necessary. Everything he had pursued until now seemed pale compared to the possibility of exploring a connection that felt genuine. As he made his way back to his office, adrenaline surged through him. He needed clarity, to know what this feeling meant. Would Sarah truly reflect on his words? Would she see the same potential he saw in their shaky foundation? Did she even want more, or was this all just a fleeting moment, a high tide of emotions that would soon recede? Arriving at his desk, he distractedly glanced over the piles of papers and the blinking notifications of emails demanding attention. All of it suddenly felt unimportant. How could he focus on numbers and spreadsheets when a part of him was out there, hoping Sarah would look beyond her doubts and see the possibilities stretched out before them? He picked up his phone, hesitating for just a moment before opening a blank message. Should he reach out again, or would that be seen as pressure? He ran a hand through his hair, frustration creeping back. His mind flickered back to the look in her eyes when they had that conversation. So much potential, yet tinged with uncertainty. The faint sound of laughter and chatter trickled into the office from the nearby break room, cutting through his thoughts. He leaned back in his chair, wondering. It felt too much like he was sitting at the edge of a cliff, looking out over an expanse that could go either way. He picked up the message again, fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Thinking of you," he typed. Simple, yet filled with meaning, hope, and maybe just a touch of daring. But as he contemplated sending it, doubt seeped in. What if she saw it as desperation? Or pressure? Moments passed, and he ultimately set his phone down with a sigh. Instead, he turned his chair to face the window. Outside, people bustled about, their lives moving forward while his felt momentarily suspended. Later that evening, alone in his apartment, he tried to shake the uncertainty from his mind. He found himself pacing, the weight of unresolved feelings pushing against his chest. Maybe it was time for action, not just words. If Sarah needed time to think, perhaps he could show her how serious he was, in a way that wouldn't come off as intrusive. He grabbed a pen and a notepad and started jotting down ideas. A small bouquet of flowers? A handwritten note? Something to remind her that he was there waiting, that he respected her need for space but would keep the door open for whatever she decided. Just then, his phone buzzed, jolting him from his thoughts. His heart raced again, a flicker of hope sparking deep in his chest. He fished it out of his pocket, his breath hitching as he looked at the screen. It was a message from Sarah. He opened it cautiously, anticipation curling in his stomach. But as he read her words, a knot twisted in his gut. Would it be filled with the doubt that haunted their last conversation, or could it spark something new? "Tom, I've been thinking. Maybe we could meet tomorrow? Just to talk." His heart raced at the prospect of their conversation. Maybe this was the moment he'd been waiting for, the shift he'd hoped would solidify their connection. But what strife would arise when they faced the realities of their lives? The complexities of their worlds came crashing back into focus. Would talking be enough, or were they still miles apart in understanding, even amidst this hope, with newfound determination? He replied, "I'd love that." As the hours marched on until the next day, he couldn't help but wonder what would emerge in that conversation. Would it lead to clarity for both of them, or would it deepen their divide? The stakes felt higher than ever, and he could barely contain the anticipation that surged through him. Tomorrow, they would get the opportunity to navigate the intriguing, precarious line between hope and reality. What would they uncover as they faced one another once more? The morning came too quickly for Tom. He barely slept, heavy thoughts swirling in his mind like dark clouds. He tossed and turned, replaying moments from the cafe, a smile, a hesitant laugh, the flicker of hope in Sarah's eyes. Yes, the prospect of their meeting hung over him like a thick mist, uncertain yet full of promise. That he showered mechanically, his thoughts locked on the impending encounter. How could he approach it? Would they just circle around their feelings, or dive deeper? The potential for joy and heartbreak in equal measure made him shiver. Over breakfast, he fumbled with his toast. The thought of Sarah's voice had him nearly choking. "Breathe," he murmured to himself as he wiped his hands on a paper towel. He slipped into a light jacket, a casual yet purposeful choice, and stepped out into the brisk morning air. The city was alive, but his heart was racing as if he were preparing for a marathon. Every street corner felt different, everywhere he looked, he was reminded of Sarah. The bakery where they shared pastries, the park bench where they talked about dreams, every spot was layered with memories. It made him realize how intertwined they had become, even amidst the uncertainty. An hour later, he found himself pacing outside the cafe where they agreed to meet. The familiar aroma of roasted coffee wafted through the door, an invitation he longed to accept but hesitated. What if things didn't go as he hoped? What if they couldn't bridge the gap that loomed between them? Finally, his phone buzzed, and his heart skipped. It was a message from Sarah, "I'm here." And just like that, the weight he had been carrying shifted. He took a deep breath, ready to step into the cafe and face whatever lay ahead. As he entered, he spotted her right away. Sarah sat at their usual table, fingers wrapped around a steaming cup, a nervous smile gracing her lips as she spotted him. Time seemed to freeze for a moment. She looked beautiful, even with the flicker of doubt in her eyes. Tom waved, feeling a sudden urge to pull her into his arms, but he held back, the gravity of the moment grounding him. "Hey," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. The warmth of her presence ignited a spark within him. "Thanks for coming." "Of course," she replied, her voice soft but steady. "I wanted to talk, really talk." The sincerity in her tone sent chills down his spine. This was it. What lay ahead was unknown, but it was filled with the possibility of everything they needed to resolve. Their conversations from before, the pauses filled with unspoken words, they were here to confront it all. "I've been thinking," Tom began, reaching across the table, his fingers brushing against hers, igniting a rush of emotion. "About what we said the other day," but before he could lay out his heart, an unexpected look washed over her face, a mix of fear and determination. "Tom, please, let me say something first." His stomach dropped, anxiety battling with the flutter of hope in his chest. There was something in her eyes that felt both heavy and liberating. What did he have to lose? He nodded quietly, inviting her to continue, even if he feared what was coming next. "I've been struggling with opening up," she confessed, biting her lip as she searched for the words. "There's something I need you to understand about my past, about why I've been so hesitant." Tom's heart raced, fear gripping him. Was this the moment everything changed? "Sarah," he whispered, leaning in closer. "I know it might change how you see me." Her voice trembled but was resolute, as if she was summoning all her courage. What truth was she about to reveal? Tom felt the world around them fade away. In that moment, nothing mattered but the two of them and the life-altering honesty that hung in the air. What could she possibly say that would change everything for them? Sarah took a deep breath, her eyes locking onto Tom's. He could see her chest rise and fall, a fragile rhythm of someone standing on the precipice of vulnerability. "What I haven't told you," she started, her voice steady yet fragile, "is that my past is complicated. I've been afraid to let you in because I'm scared of what that means for me and for us." Tom felt his pulse quicken, the weight of her words settling like lead in the air. "You can tell me anything," he urged softly, urging her with his gaze to continue. "I grew up in a difficult home," she continued, her gaze drifting slightly, lost in memories she hadn't spoken of before. "My family, they weren't supportive. There was a time when I felt completely trapped. I thought I'd never escape." He leaned in closer. "What do you mean?" "I mean, there were all these expectations," she said, voice trembling. "I wasn't allowed to pursue my dreams. I was always told I was too shy, too sensitive to make it in the world. So, I built walls to protect myself." Tom wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but he held still, letting her take the lead. Each word felt like a brick she was removing from a wall, revealing a hidden side of herself he hadn't seen before. "I thought being private would keep me safe," she said, finally meeting his gaze again. "But it just made me feel more isolated." She ran a finger around the rim of her cup, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'm afraid that if we get too close, I might push you away. That I'll ruin what we have." "No," Tom said, a gentle urgency in his voice. "You won't ruin anything. Sharing this only makes me want to be closer to you." He could feel every beat of his heart, an urgent plea for her to trust him. "I'm here, Sarah. I want to understand. Please, don't push me away." Her breath hitched, and a single tear slid down her cheek. In that moment, she looked like someone who had been carrying far too much for far too long. "I'm scared you'll see me as weak," she confessed, trembling slightly. "That you might see me differently." "Seeing you differently would never happen," he declared earnestly, eyes locked on hers. "I see you, Sarah. I see your strength, your heart. That's what matters." For the first time, a tentative smile broke through her sorrow. The flicker of hope he had seen that day in the cafe seemed to ignite again. It was fragile, but it shone all the same. But just as the tension in the air began to lift, her expression changed. The storm clouds she'd been carrying still lingered. Tom, she hesitated, swallowing hard, there's more. It's not just my past. There's something that could change everything. What is it? He asked, his voice tense with anticipation. I've been seeing someone. Someone important in my past. I thought closing that chapter would help me open up to you, but now I don't know what to do. The words fell between them like a heavy stone, and Tom's heart sank. He forced himself to breathe, feeling the city outside pass by, life moving on while they stood still, suspended in this raw moment. The sincerity of their connection had just been shattered, and he could only wonder had the promise of reconciliation already slipped through his fingers? What would happen next? Would he still have a chance to fix things? Or was this the beginning of an end he hadn't anticipated? Tom's mind raced, each thought colliding with the next. Sarah had opened her heart, and just as he believed they were moving forward, she unveiled a secret that threatened to unravel everything. The city outside continued to bustle with life, but inside the cafe, the world had narrowed down to just the two of them, caught in an emotional standoff. Someone from your past, he echoed, trying to keep his voice steady. It felt so slippery, like ice melting under his feet. He searched her face for clarity, but all he found was a mix of fear and regret, the storm cloud still looming in her eyes. Yes, she affirmed quietly, looking away. The vulnerability in her voice made his heart ache. We were close, really close. I thought that part of my life was behind me when I moved here. But now? It feels like I'm still tethered to it, and I don't know how to cut those ties. Tom swallowed, feeling the fight leave him momentarily. Do you still have feelings for him? No. The word came out quickly, almost too fast. I don't. Not like that. But he's part of a life I thought I had escaped. I'm worried that it'll come back to haunt me, haunt us. The uncertainty in her gaze clung to him like fog. Sarah, just because someone was important once doesn't mean they have to be important now. He reached for her hand but stopped short, unsure of crossing that line again. You have to let them go. I know, she said, squeezing her eyes shut as if trying to block her thoughts. But it's complicated. He was a safety net I used to cling to. I'm scared that if we dive deeper, if you really get to know me, I'll fall apart again. He leaned back slightly, allowing the weight of her words to settle in. It pained him to see her so conflicted, yet he still felt drawn to her. Time doesn't erase feelings, but it can help us understand them, he said cautiously. Maybe the chapter isn't fully closed, but that doesn't mean it defines who you are now. Sarah looked at him, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. You make it sound easy, she whispered. I just don't want to ruin what we have. It's too precious to me. It is precious, he agreed, his voice a whisper, but so are you. I don't want you to hide from me. I want all of you, the good and the messy. She blinked, a small spark of hope igniting in her eyes. Would she let him in, or would the past keep her shackled? Could he be the one to help her face the person she had once been, the girl who stood behind those walls? Just then, her phone buzzed on the table, and the moment shattered like glass. She glanced at the screen, and for a split second, her expression shifted to something deeper, worry, perhaps? A sense of urgency washed over her. What is it? He asked, his heart racing again. She bit her lip, fear creeping back into her voice. It's him, he's coming to town. I didn't expect this. I thought I had more time. Tom's world tilted again. This was not the news he had expected. Was the past about to crash into their fragile moment, threatening to push them apart before they'd even begun to understand each other? He couldn't help but wonder, could they fight against the shadows of her past, or was the road ahead paved with uncertainty? Tom stared at Sarah, the momentum of their conversation shattered by the sudden arrival of her past. He could see the turmoil wash over her, and his own heart sank as doubt clawed its way back in. What does this mean for us? he asked, feeling an urgency in his voice that echoed the thuds of his heart. She blinked, stunned. I don't know, she admitted, struggling to find the words. I hoped I could move on, but seeing him again means confronting old ghosts. Do you want him back? The question slipped out before he could catch it. A tight knot formed in his chest, a mixture of anxiety and protectiveness. He needed certainty, he needed to know where he stood. Her eyes widened, filled with a mix of surprise and hurt. No, Tom, I don't. I want to build something with you. Her voice trembled with emotion, and she leaned forward, searching his eyes. But the thought of reopening that door terrifies me. I don't want to lose what I've started with you. Tom took a deep breath, grounding himself in her honesty. Then let us face it together, he said, squeezing her hand gently. You don't have to go through this alone. I can help you navigate through whatever comes up. She blinked at him, and a glimmer of hope sparked through her fear. You'd do that? Even with everything going on? Of course, I would, Tom replied, a slight smile breaking through. I mean it when I say I want all of you. Together, we can figure this out. You're not just a maid to me, Sarah. You're so much more. Tears pooled in her eyes, and as she steadied her breath, he could see her walls starting to crack. I haven't let anyone in like this for a long time, she murmured, vulnerability wrapping around her words. And it's okay. It's scary and raw, but it's also real. He forced his own insecurities aside, feeling the weight of the moment shift towards something brighter. Being honest about the past doesn't have to define us. It's about how we move forward, together. Sarah's gaze fell to their entwined hands, an expression of gratitude washing over her. You really mean that? I do. I see you, Sarah. The strength in you, the dreams you carry, all that you've overcome. It's absolutely inspiring. His words hung heavy in the air, filled with sincerity. An ember of determination ignited behind her eyes. Perhaps I've let fear control my choices for too long, she admitted softly. Facing my past might be the key to unlocking everything I want for my future. What we want. Tom's heart swelled at her recognition, the courage in her voice buoying his own resolve. Let us walk through this together. You're not alone anymore, he said firmly. As if the world around them shifted, Sarah took a deep breath, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. You're right. I've been carrying too much weight alone, she confessed. But how do I confront him? What if he tries to pull me back? Then we'll face him together, Tom said resolutely. You'll show him you've moved on. We will establish boundaries and let him know your life is different now, and so are you. The faintest smile touched her lips. Okay, together. But first, he said, tilting his head playfully, how about we grab some coffee before this roller coaster really starts? Sarah laughed, the sound breaking through the fog of tension and lifting them both. I can get coffee anytime. But facing my past with you? That's priceless. They reached for each other's hands, feeling the warmth pulsate between them, grounding them in the moment. The lingering doubt that had danced around their hearts began to dissolve, replaced by an electric current of shared purpose. Hand in hand, they left the cafe, the weight of uncertainty still there, but lighter now, tangible hope leading the way. The world still buzzed around them, but they were finally stepping into it, no longer afraid of what lay ahead. Standing side by side, they opened the door to life and possibilities, merging their paths together. Their journey would be anything but simple, but they were ready to meet everything, together. As they ventured into the unknown, they became a testament to resilience, love, and the undeniable strength found in unity. This was their moment, a beginning interlaced with scars but now filled with a promise of something beautiful. Would they seize it? Just then, as they reached the street's edge, they could see the sun dipping low on the horizon, igniting the sky in shades of hope. That moment, that sticking point between fear and forward movement, was the start of something new for both of them, a chance to create the future they both truly desired. So let this be a call to action. If you believe in resilience, love, and the power of connection, subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss these exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and thank you for your continued support. Comment below with your thoughts, feelings, and reactions to this powerful ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans understand the importance of uplifting our community, so let us take this journey together.